Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Good evening, everyone, and I hope that all of you are safe and healthy. Let me present myself. I am Dr. Iman Saeed from the Core Curriculum Program. First of all, I would like to thank the CETL and the CCP for co-organizing this workshop series on innovations and best practices in online teaching. In this presentation, it could be the following of the one performed by my colleague during the last 2 days on the quality matters for online courses. Today, I will make a zoom on what is happening inside the virtual class and focus on the online class or virtual session in terms of design and delivery. So my presentation is entitled The Core Curriculum Program, a Success Story in Designing and Delivering Online Courses. Why a success story? Because I have applied for the CCP Virtual Award in spring 2020 and won it. So today I will try to relate this experience of virtual teaching. For this purpose, I will share with you the best practices, strategies, and tips I have used in order to design and deliver virtual sessions. We'll have some polling questions through the presentation and some discussion at the end. So first of all, I will begin with the small introduction about online instruction. Then I will talk about the CCP first actions for successful online synchronous learning during spring 2020. In order to relate my successful experience in online classes, the presentation will go through 3 big steps. First, before the virtual session, which is the design stage. Second, I will talk about the best practices during my virtual session. And then I will address what is needed after the virtual session in terms of student interaction strategies and support. And I will finish my conclusion. Throughout the presentation, I will move from theory to practice in order to adopt the most useful theories, strategies, and practices on my online class experience based on concrete examples. So let's begin with the introduction. Let's begin with this question. Form of distance education which relies on internet to connect students and faculty, and where we deliver online courses. There are, of course, 2 modes of learning in online courses: asynchronous learning and synchronous learning. And we can have both within the hybrid courses also. Asynchronous learning occurs through online channels without real-time interaction. It is the case, for example, of MOOCs courses that are taught using special platforms such as edX, Coursera, etc. And it includes self-guided lesson modules, videos, content, libraries. Whereas synchronous learning is online or distance education that happens in real time and with time interaction. And it includes video conferencing, live chatting, live streaming lectures, and virtual sessions. As you know, because of COVID-19 pandemic, we were led to switch to distance learning in spring 2020 by giving online courses with synchronous learning through virtual sessions. So let's try to evaluate our synchronous online classes on spring 2020. Can you please answer this polling question? So the polling will appear in front of you within a few seconds. I will just, before read the question, how do you evaluate your experience in delivering virtual lectures or sessions during spring 2020? Was it 1, excellent experience that doesn't need further improvement? 2, good experience, better than expected but needs some improvement? Or was it acceptable experience but needs a lot of work for the future? So let me do the polling. Up, 2, on, or 3. Can you answer on the polling, please? Thank you. I see that 2 is really winning. Great. Most of the answers are 2. Waiting for other answers. There are some 3. You are very modest. Sorry. Up. Sorry. Up. So, honestly, I gave the same answer as the majority, which is good experience, better than expected, but needs improvement. It was the case for me during spring 2020. I will begin by better than expected. I think that most of us were skeptical in the beginning about the new online experience and didn't expect good results. But I think also that it is a good experience for you and for me also, because you have worked hard and made big efforts in order to make the experience successful. And finally, you said that the experience needs improvement, of course, because you are modest, but also we all need as instructors improvement in order to enhance our teaching performance. So let's discover together the components of the online CCP experience for online synchronous learning. During spring 2020, all KU colleges, departments, centers worked hard in order to make the online experience successful. In particular, the core curriculum program has reacted very quickly after KU decision of distance learning. First, hands-on sessions have been performed in CCP based on seated workshops in order to conduct virtual teaching smoothly. Also, a small team called Champions has been created in order to help faculty members for online issues and adapt our curriculum to the distance learning situation. It was my honor to be part of this small team. Also, CCP was a leader in the beginning of the distance learning decision by launching some tutorial videos for students and faculties, and you can find all these videos in our website. And furthermore, CCP has initiated an award in order to recognize faculty for developing and delivering the most effective virtual teaching class. This award has been named the CCP Virtual Teaching Award. So let's talk about this award. The required material for the award were the virtual lesson plan, the recorded virtual session, and a recorded educational video. Of course, there was a detailed rubric of each of the required items, and most of the rubric components will be discussed and described throughout the presentation, since I used them for my virtual class. When I saw the CCP announcement about the award, I first tried to organize things based on the rubric. And I told myself that it's true that the award is based essentially on the virtual session, which is the principal component of online course with synchronous learning. However, it needs a preparation before the live virtual session, then during the virtual session, and after the virtual session. So basically, before the virtual session, a preparation effort should go to the design of the session. Then during the session, some practices should be used with the concentration on student interaction. Also, there is still a work to continue to support students even after the online class with a continuous interaction with students. Let's go through these 3 big steps with an emphasis on theory, going through strategies, and applying all on a concrete example from my virtual class. So the first step is before the virtual session. Let's begin with what I had to prepare before the virtual class, which is the design of my online virtual session. I tried to apply one of the most famous online course design methods, which is the backward design, proposed either for courses or for live sessions, and developed by Baum and Ryan in 2017. This method that inspired me was deeply explained in the Goethe Guide, which is a guide for online teaching and learning prepared by CETA. When teachers are designing lessons, units, or courses, some of them often focus on the content, activities, and instruction rather than the outputs of the instruction itself. Therefore, it can be stated that those teachers often focus more on teaching rather than learning. On the contrary, the backward design, which is based on 3 stages or steps, starts with identify desired results. That means what goals or outcomes that we want our students to achieve. Then determine acceptable evidence for achieving of these learning objectives. Finally, the designer can plan learning experiences and instruction, which is the teaching part that includes content, activities, etc. So let's go through these 3 steps one by one that I applied for the design of virtual session. The first step of the designing the session is identify desired results. Let's begin by this quotation. The celebrated inspirational speaker and coach and author Ben Guthrie once said, "No amount of travel on the wrong road will bring you to the right destination." What does it mean? So the same here can be said about instructional design. Learning objectives, which refers to identify desired results step, are to instructional designers the same as a map to a traveler. With the proper learning objectives in place, designing a relevant, engaging, and useful session becomes a lot easier. So identify desired results means that we should first define the session goals or learning objectives in terms of transfer, where we should identify how students will transfer the knowledge gained from session and apply it outside of the context of the session. The understanding goals, where students will ask what are the big ideas and specific understanding students will have when the session complete. And for the acquisition goal also, we identify what is the key knowledge and skills students will acquire from the session. So I tried to apply this first step to my the design of my virtual session on mnemonic devices, which is the topic that we teach in University 100, and which refers to the different techniques of memory. The setting of learning objectives goes through here transfer. If I want to apply transfer objectives, here I would ask myself how students will use memory techniques in their study and daily life. And then the understanding objectives, I would say to myself or try to identify which is how memory works and how students will develop mnemonics. And finally, we have the acquisition objective, which can be divided into knowledge component and skills component. In this case, it deals about the knowledge of the 4 proposed types of memory techniques, and then the mastering of these techniques in terms of skills. So let's move now to the second step of the backward design. The second stage of backward design is the determination of acceptable evidence that refers to all types of evidence that will show if students have demonstrated understandings or achievement of the desired results of the session. At this stage, we should consider the 2 questions. First question is, how will I know if students have achieved the desired results? And the second one is, what will I accept as evidence, student understanding and proficiency? At this stage, it's important to consider a wide range of assessment methods in order to ensure that students are being assessed over the goals the instructor wants students to attain. So obviously here the evidence is assessment. It includes all kinds of assessments, homework assignments, quizzes, tests, group projects. So here we are still before the session and we are defining the assessment. This is a very important phase. So I will apply the same for my virtual class, the same topic. So I have set some acceptable evidence in order to show if students have demonstrated the achievement of the desired results of the session explained in the first step. For example, I can design a homework about a discussion board on the most used and useful memory techniques. Another evidence could be a question in quiz or exam by asking students to create scenarios of how to apply a specific given memory technique in daily life. And finally, another possibility of assessment could be to ask students, for example, to match given scenarios on mnemonic devices used with the appropriate memory technique. Here we can say that we have here the transfer objective, understanding objectives, and one question about the acquisition objectives. It is worth noting here the importance of well-developing assessment questions that promotes critical thinking for online learning, with the necessity for creating questions drawn from the high level of the Bloom's taxonomy. We all remember the workshop performed by Seattle on the types of assessment and on strategies of assessments. So now we'll move to the third and last step for backward design. It's plan learning experiences and instruction. It's only in this stage that instructors begin to consider how they will teach. The instructor should define the knowledge first in terms of facts, concepts, principles, and the skills in terms of processes, procedures, strategies that students will need in order to perform effectively and achieve desired results, the desired results in the first step that we talked about in the first step. Then the instructor will create activities that will equip students with the needed knowledge and skills. Besides, the instructor should choose the instructional strategies which are the best teaching methods in light of performance goals. And finally, the instructor should provide students with the best materials and resources which are best suited to accomplish the goals of the session. So, as I did it before, I applied, of course, the third step of the same example of on mnemonic devices in the design of my virtual session. So for knowledge and skills, I plan to include, for example, explanation of mnemonic devices, principles, as well as process of mastering of these memory techniques. For activities, I created, for example, memory tests before and after the acquisition of the skill, a case study on one of the memory techniques, which is, for example, the location methods, a group activity of how to apply all the memory techniques, and formative assessment at the end of the session, and the discussion board that I talked about and mentioned on the how the use of memory techniques, which is the more efficient, etc. So also I have planned to use as methods of teaching the interactive lecturing, the group discussion, some problem solving, some gamification, and we'll talk about this in details after all. Finally, I plan to include some videos, slides, book parts, some relevant resources on the same topic. So now we finish the 3 steps of the backward design. After I applied the 3 stages of the backward design on my virtual session, and just before the live virtual session, I found it logical to go through a 4th stage, which is the preparation of the virtual lesson plan with specific criteria, and the 5th stage, which is to build the session material on the LMS. The prepared lesson plan was, of course, based and in line with the learning experience plan in stage 3. It was clear, well structured, of course, and it was followed during the virtual session. Finally, and for stage 5, all the session material was built on the LMS, which is the learning management system. In our case, it's Blackboard. It includes, as we mentioned before, the lesson plan, the materials and resources, slides, videos, etc., the activities, and the homeworks. The more we are informative to students, the better it is. So I will show now one example, the example of the plan of of my virtual session I have prepared on the same topic, which is the memory techniques. I will not go through the details. It's even unreadable, but we can see here that we have a structured plan. We have the objectives or the desired results. The content is set here. It goes from the review of previous lesson, different memory techniques, their definition, how does they work, how to use them, so what is the best practice, etc. Recap, conclusions, and formative assessment at the end of the session. Then we have here different activities and homeworks. And I mentioned also in my lesson plan the used technical tools. I have also included some relevant photos to the content in order to attract students. And of course, this lesson plan will be shared with students before the virtual session. Also, we can see here an example of the last stage of, sorry, no, I thought there was a, so also we can see here an example of the last stage of the design, which is building the material of the virtual session to the LMS. We can have what all the slides, the videos, the plans of the sessions, all the activities, the relevant documents, etc. So, as a recap before the virtual session, which is the design part. So the design of my virtual session includes 5 stages, which are identify desired results, determine acceptable evidence, plan learning experiences and instruction, which are the 3 stages of the backward design. And then we have to prepare the preparation of the lesson plan of the virtual session and build materials on the learning management system. So after we finish the design of the session, let's move now to the best practices during the virtual session that I collected based on my experience. So during the virtual session, the best practices could be divided into 5 components. We can find the content, the teaching methods, the activities, the technical tools, and the student interaction, which is a very important part. So here we are inside the class, inside the lesson. In the following, I will go through each component to address the best practices I have used during the virtual session. Then I will, in another stage, I will present concrete examples of some of these practices from the session. First, and in terms of content, it is important to make a review of previous lectures in order to make a link with previous contents and attract the students or all the students, even those who were absent. Then, and as we said before, the content should be in line with the desired results in terms of transfer, acquisition, and understanding. Also, the quality of the content should be advanced and promoting critical thinking. And at the end of the session, it is better to perform a formative assessment in order to test the students' comprehension and acquisition of the content. It could be also a good tip in order to check if students were really present during the session. So the second component of during the virtual session is teaching methods. They should be various, well implemented, interactive. We try to use more than one method, such as here, interactive lecture, classroom discussions, group work, case studies, flipped classroom. I have used most of these instructional strategies during my session, apart from the flipped classroom, and I'm planning to use it, inshallah, during the next semester. I'm preparing things for that. In the same context, instructor should always check student comprehension of most of the material explained during the session. Now, for the third component, for activities, we try to create various and different activities, well developed, promoting critical thinking. Also, activities should be engaging to students and maximizing their learning productivity. In my session, I have used some matching exercises, games, problem solving, individual and group activity, case study, and some free response questions. Technical tools now. Regarding technical tools, instructors should use various tools in order to attract students and engage them. First, for content, it is important to incorporate visuals and multimedia material by sharing slides, videos, in order to create a richer learning experience. The most used tools for virtual session are for Blackboard Collaborate Ultra. We can use Whiteboard, chat, voice, polling, breakout groups. For Blackboard, we can use them also and share them during the virtual session. Discussion board, group collaborate, wikis, blogs. And also, it is very advised to use some gamification tools such as Kahoot or equivalent programs in order to engage students. So during my virtual session, I have used most of these tools. During virtual session also, the last and very important component now that should be raised is the student interaction. It could be student to student or student to faculty, dynamic and thoughtful interaction. A repeated question that maybe came to our and your minds during spring 2020 was, how can we be sure that students don't get bored during the session, don't go to watch TV or open social media, or even don't come back to sleep? Before answering this question, let me have your opinion on the following. We'll do the same polling question now. Based on your experience in spring 2020, what is the level of students' interest and interaction during your virtual session? Was it one, more than 80%, two, between 50 and 70%, three, between 20 and 50%, or less than 20%? Let me prepare the polling that will appear. Okay, we have start. So till now, most of the answers are 1, 2, so more than the average, small 3, and we have also 20%. So most of the answers were between 50 and 70%. It's very good, great. So the interaction went well for you. I really want to focus now on this 20%. The 20% is referring to students maybe who go back to sleep really during the session. The question now, let's come back to our questions that we said before. How can we avoid such small percentage of students' interaction? How can we keep students engaged and interacted during our virtual lesson? Let's talk now about the most useful strategies in order to enhance this interaction. So, we all know that live virtual sessions can create a variety of synchronous interaction opportunities in order to forge relationships, clarify ideas, and spark new insights. The first interaction strategy that we instructors can adopt is first to avoid recreated one-way lectures during live sessions. This could be by using a variety of teaching methods and interactive activities, as we mentioned before. Also, some guidelines are saying that we should stimulate students with different content or activities each 3 to 5 minutes. So we should have participants do something throughout the session and always stimulate them by a question. So this is the first strategy. So they should be busy so that not to get bored. As a tip here, students should know, of course we can explain the rules at the beginning of the session, but as a tip, student will know that we can ask questions to everyone and at each time, and to anyone, sorry. Second, good interaction with students could be assured by encouraging students' participations in discussion. How? The use of challenging and thoughtful questions can encourage students to participate. So let's choose questions which promote really critical thinking, challenging, good questions, not boring questions. In the same vein, promoting discussion with short, open-ended questions and comments from the instructor will help facilitate and encourage communication. Also, faculty can give credit for good participation in order to increase students' engagement. So here, credit for participation could be by applauding, by giving awards, achievements, or also bonus. And you know that all the students love the bonus. In this context, it's very important to get students talking and chatting. The more students talk and ask questions, the better it is for virtual sessions. So another strategy that can foster student-to-student now interaction could be by providing socially focused exchanges, such as exchanges of personal information, participation in group. These activities require students to work with one another, share results, and generally help them transcend typical course discussions. This leads us to talk about the collaborative work, which is also student-to-student interaction, and through group discussions, group activities, or group homework. When group work goes well, students achieve higher grades, learn at a deeper level, and retain information longer. So this was the after relating the best practices used during my virtual session in terms of content, teaching methods, activities, technical tools, and student interaction, I will move now to give you some concrete examples of the use of some attractive tools, which is screenshotted from my session. First, the whiteboard. It is used in general to capture expectations at the beginning of the session, and we can visit them at the end of the lecture. I use it in the beginning of the session in order to remind important deadline of research or project submission, make the review of the previous lesson, or put some quotations or some useful information about the actual situation or whatever. Thus, if a student joins the session late, he can find the important information on the virtual board. It is also better to use annotation tools with highlights, circle, or underline in order to attract students' attention, of course, without overusing them because they must serve only as instructional purpose. A tip could be also to get students writing on the board. This avoids backseat learning and students have to take charge of the lesson. So the second tool that I have used also, this is the discussion board. I use it for homework, as I mentioned before. So here we can, it's on Blackboard, of course. Here we can put the question, and then the correction could be performed by making one student, for example, present his answer and implicating other students to discuss their colleagues' ideas and answering using either chat or voice. Let's focus now on chat and voice. As you know, chat allows students and instructors to communicate with one another through text messaging. It ensures that everyone has his opinion heard. It is commonly used to ask open-ended short questions or as a brainstorming tool where participants share as many ideas as possible. Just a tip I often use in order to maximize participation. I ask students to type in their answers, but not press send until the instructor says it. So this can maximize participation, allow students, shy students also to participate, and don't let students be influenced by other answers. It is also important to encourage students to participate in audio discussion using the voice. Audio discussion is one of the most effective ways to enhance collaborative exercises and engage opportunities. And one of the tips could be, as we mentioned before, giving credit for audio participation. So in the beginning, according to my experience, they were shy, and with the credit, of course, everybody will use this audio tool. Visuals now. The use of visuals when the unstructured voice main tool used during virtual session in order to engage students, communicate content, and promote active learning. Of course, when designing the virtual class material and when the instructor uses visuals such as slides, graphs, pictures, it is important to limit text, include relevant and appropriate visuals that support instructional objectives, and not to overload with inappropriate or only decorative visuals. This is an example of a shared slide with only one image. And this is another example of an activity of memory test based on remembering 20 shared images on the slides. So either we use one image or 20 images, it doesn't matter. The most important thing is that visuals should be relevant to the course content and support instructional objectives. We move now to the case studies. Slides could also be used for sharing case studies. In this case, this is the case of a study of one of the memory techniques about the method of locations, followed by a matching exercise. And here students are asked to answer either by voice or chat also. An important tool, which is the breakout groups, or we call this also the breakout rooms. This tool increases students' engagements. Groups should be small enough to promote everyone's engagement. Group activities should be structured, brief, and clear with focused exercise or scenario in order to guarantee each student understanding. It is better that the leader also is assigned to each group. It could be on Blackboard Collaborate Ultra. Within this, we click on this icon. Of course, after this icon, then this icon, or on Blackboard, but with using the Groups Collaborate tool. This is, for example, a group activity using the Groups Collaborate tool. So after going to setting the group, we go to Groups, then we click to Collaborate, and then we have to join each room here in order to discuss with each group the solving of the proposed exercise, on how to apply, for example, each memory technique on one topic or some information. Of course, relevant feedback is also provided for each room. It is very important also to use gamification in the virtual sessions. Games are very engaging and useful to reinforce concepts and attract students' attention. This is the formative assessment I performed at the very end of the session on Kahoot in order to assess students' comprehension. And of course, if there is winners, there is also engagement, and students will be attracted throughout the session. Finally, polling is very advising for virtual sessions. It is used to determine whether students understand the content, to ask questions about a new topic, or to create icebreakers. It is also used as a survey to ask students about their feedback. It is very important that students rate their learning experience at the end of the class in order to assess their satisfaction, evaluate our teaching performance, and try to enhance it in the future sessions. For example, I used the polling, the session, by asking students about their percentage of satisfaction throughout the session. So now we finish with during the virtual session. Let's move to the last part of the presentation, which is after the virtual session. It is very important to continue to take company to students even after the virtual session. Students' interaction and support to students continue after the session. Let's talk about some student interaction strategies after the virtual session. First, a consistent and clear communication should be carried on with students using the learning management system. Here, posts made via the learning management system can include online class rules, which is very important, reminders or preview of upcoming assignments, comments on a discussion, test, or assignment, deadlines of submissions, relevant videos or articles, or personal news to share with the class. The personal news is very important because with this personal, for example, it encourages students to share their troubles or problems with the instructors. With sharing personal news, instructor shows that the human side and the student feels that there is a personal communication with the instructor, which makes him comfortable in dealing with the course. Second, also as student interaction after the virtual session, it is that instructors should be responsive by developing time, for example, well-scheduled office hours, scheduling frequent question and answer sessions via interactive videos that could be live or not, answering questions via email in a record time, but it could be set according to each instructor within 24 hours or 48 hours, it depends. Besides, it's important to give continuous feedback to students throughout the course on summative grades and formative assessments in order to show that the instructor is closely evaluated their performance. The last strategy for students' interaction is to engage them with non-task interaction by creating opportunities to interact with students that help support learning community with non-task interaction using different applications such as WhatsApp, Remind, or even by email. I wanted here to know your point or your opinion about this last student interaction strategy, which is maximizing engagement with non-task interaction. So we do now the last polling. Do you agree on using WhatsApp application or similar programs for non-task interaction with students after online classes? Of course, in addition to Blackboard and official email. Is it yes or no? So let me start the polling. So many of you doesn't agree. Dr. Angie is saying yes. Okay, I think that we have many yes, but there are also the no is winning here. Okay. Honestly, I was against this idea before. However, during Spring 2020, I tried it and for the first time. And I found it was very engaging. Sorry, the results were not in front of you. So many no. I have like 60% no and 40% yes. Dr. Sharfuddin. So I told you that honestly I was against the idea. However, during Spring 2020, I tried it for the first time, and I found it was very engaging and efficient to interact with students via WhatsApp. The idea is not about making a daily chatting with each student and talking about what we eat or where we go. It is just an interaction via WhatsApp group for each session, and in order to address important messages or answer a repeated question Of course, it's out of Blackboard and official email. We can, for example, make announcement, special announcement, or in case of emergency, when we have problems in connection, to switch to Zoom or Teams or whatever. So I think that owing the specific situation of distance learning, such special communication is needed. Dr. Brahim said that there are professional and legal issues communicating with students on these platforms. It's better to be safe. Yeah, okay, I respect. I told you that I was totally against this idea before, but I found it in some guidelines and in some strategies for interaction, and I tried it when I first encountered a problem, connection problem via Blackboard in the first week when we switched to online distance learning. So I found it even impossible to send email to all my students because there was problem in Blackboard. So I got the idea to have a WhatsApp group in case of emergency, in case of non-task interaction. It's not about the task interaction, it's not about homeworks, it's just about some chatting with students in order to be near from there. And yes, Dr. Angie said that she's using Remind also. And Dr. Fatma, also Dr. Lamia. Dr. Fatma said that I found using Remind safer and more appropriate with students. Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Fuad. Yeah, I know that it's not formal communication. So now after the virtual session, we finish with the student interaction. Instructor provides students with support in order to enhance their learning and take benefits from the lesson. First, instructor provides students with materials built in the design stage in the learning management system, such as slides, relevant articles, activities, homeworks. Besides, instructor provides students with the recorded virtual session offered by the most of the learning management system in order to deepen their understanding of learned notions. Allow absent students or students who encountered connection problems catch up important information. Also, it is very recommended to prepare a small recorded educational video of the lesson to do summary or recap. So, for the video, for the CCP Virtual Teaching Award, I have prepared a short educational video about the same topic, summarizing the key takeaway message from the session. The video was short, not more than, it shouldn't go more than 7 minutes. I made sure that the video includes clear objectives and learning outcomes. I tried to make the content attractive, well-designed, used images, graphics, some music or sounds. Also, I made a structured video in line with the lesson outline. Finally, I made sure that the video quality is excellent in terms of sounds and images. I will try to diffuse, we have some minutes before the conclusion. I will try to diffuse only some parts of the video, because it's 5 minutes too long. And also it is in Arabic, so I will translate a little bit. Share and up. So this is the video. It's like 5 minutes, as you see video. It presents a recap of the virtual lesson. You will see that in the beginning, I will present the introduction. I will begin the introduction on some problems of memorization and how memory works. So, up. Listen to the, and I made also music in the beginning and at the end of the video.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، ومرحبا بكم في قرى السنة ببرنامج متطلبات العام بجامعة قطر. سنحاول في هذا الفيديو أن نحصل مهارة من أهم مهارات محور الذاكرة والدراسة، ألا وهي وسائل تقوية الذاكرة. هل حصل لك في يوم من الأيام أنك ذاكرت جيدا ويوم الامتحان نسيت كل المعلومات وتركت ورقة الامتحان شبه فارغة؟ لو حصل لك هذا يمكنك متابعة هذا الفيديو لتحسين ذاكرتك والتعرف على أحدث وسائل وطرق تقوية الذاكرة. معظم الناس يظنون أن قدرات الذهن.
So this is the introduction. Let's move now to introduce one of the memory techniques, for example, which is the visual images and associations. I explained that it is based on imagining a compelling visual image and connect it to information in order to improve memory. And then I will give some examples after. So sorry, it's in Arabic, but let's try to. I have to remove the mic.
واضح. فيقوم أساساً على تخيل صور بصرية مقنعة بحيث يمكننا ربط المعلومات بصور، وبذلك تكون الصور الأكثر فاعلية هي التي نستعمل فيها الألوان أو الحركة. فمثلاً يمكننا أن نتذكر اسم المستكشف العربي ابن بطوطة بتخيل بطة في مزرعة، أو لنستذكر نمط شخصية المفكر يمكننا أن نتخيل دماء بشرية أو حتى مصباحاً، ولنتذكر نمط شخصية المغامر الذي يحب السفر يمكننا أن نتخيل طائرته، حتى أنه يمكننا ربط الصور بقصة حتى لا ننسى.
So this is so the examples on the first memory technique. As you see, we have images, visuals. When we have to be sure that when we are talking that the image or the visual came in the same place. And finally, the conclusion. I put again for the conclusion some music at the end, and I concluded about the 4 memory techniques. And then I finished with a quotation saying that memory is the best servant to the brain as a translation.
المعلومات التي يجب أن تتذكرها يمكنك أن تختار وسائل تقوية الذاكرة التي تساهم في تدريب العقل، وهي الصور البصرية والروابط، طريقة المواضع المكانية، الاختصارات أو حتى الأشعار. وهكذا تقوي الذاكرة عضلات العقل ونتغلب على النسيان. فعلى قول الكاتب أحلام الصغاني الذاكرة أحسن خادم للعقل.
So this was some parts of the video. Of course, I can share with you all the video and or even the recorded session. I will share again my slides. So now the conclusion. Finally, reaching successful virtual teaching experience needs 1. Serious preparation and design for the virtual session using the 3 stages of the backward design, of preparation of the lesson plan and building the materials on LMS. 2. Specific instructional practices and strategies during the session in terms of content, activities, teaching methods, technical tools, and especially student interaction component. And finally, a continuous support to students after the virtual session with continuous student interaction. As I mentioned before, I applied for the CCP Virtual Teaching Award by submitting the virtual session plan, the recording of the session, as well as the recorded educational video, and thanks to God, I got the award. I take this opportunity to extend special thanks to the program and to my colleagues from the CCP administration and faculty members for their continuous support. So this presentation was a modest success story intercepted with some practices, strategies, and tips that I have drawn from my own experience, and I found it was important to share with you. I can say that delivering virtual classes was a very enjoyable and rewarding and challenging experience for me. Finally, I hope that I was not too long. We have like 6 minutes left, and that you benefited from this experience. Thank you for your attention. Of course, if you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate. Thank you for your presence and for your attention. So we have some comments from Dr. Fatima. She's saying, Even if our physical class delivery has been very interactive, we need to take into consideration that research shows students' focus time decreases up to only 2-3 minutes during online lessons. Yes, that's why Dr. Fatma, some guidelines are encouraging to change even content no more than 3 minutes, between 3 and 5 minutes. So we all need to use variety of teaching methods, engaging activities, technical tools, formative assessment to keep them on the track continuously. Of course, that's what we have mentioned. So very good, excellent. Dr. Danielle, for anyone interested in alternatives to engage students during synchronous learning, check out nearpod.com. Thank you, Dr. Danielle. Found it to be easy to use and also fun for students. Thank you very much. I will take notes. Thank you. Other comments? Thank you, Dr. Zakaria. Thank you, Dr. Fatma. The only problem is how you can guarantee that students is doing the assigned work. Yes, as we mentioned, we have to ask students about give them credit for answering. We have to check the formative assessment. It is very important to know that, because within the formative assessment, for example, for Kahoot, you have the names. So many tools that we have set. Also for the group work, the groups collaborate. When you enter to the room, you can talk with each student, and you can see if the student is answering the question or not. So all these are things to show that students is assigning really the work. Thank you, all of you. Thank you, Dr. Fatma. Thank you, Dr. Rania also. So I have a last question, please, to all of you. Or a strategy that maybe we didn't mention and that you are using in order to share it with others. Dr. Mudavi is saying, in architecture, we use studio presentations where every student is required to present, and I use peer review taking the students to evaluation, the highest level in Bloom's taxonomy. Yes, very great, excellent. Thank you, Dr. Mudavi, for sharing this information. Other tips, other strategies that you have, that you can share with others? So thank you very much for your attention again, and see you tomorrow if you want for the Arabic session. Thank you very much. I'm still here if anyone has any comments. Yes, also peer review is very important for students. It's a very good strategy.